Hello, and welcome to this special Christmas episode of The Mastering Show. We're doing something a bit different this time. This is what I would like to call the Christmas stocking episode. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 guests with me, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube. And just in case anybody doesn't know about the tradition of the Christmas stocking, there's one hanging up there. It's what my boys put out on Christmas Eve and hope that Father Christmas brings them all kinds of stuff, and that stuff is liable to be small, cheap, and trivial, which is exactly what we're going to give you in this show. So I thought we'll start off just by all of my guests quickly introducing themselves. So let's go left to right as I can see it here. Chris, say hello.
Hey, hello, people. I'm Chris from Quebec, Canada. I run the channel, YouTube channel Mixdown.online, and I'm a good friend of Ian and Lij here, so everybody else is new to me, so nice to meet you guys.
Great. Then Ian, say hello.
I'm also Ian Stewart. I'm a mastering and mixing engineer from Massachusetts, and sometimes online educator when I find time.
Very cool. Then we have John, who is my co-host on the show. Everybody knows John. Hi, John.
Hello, everyone. I am John Tidy. I am in Vancouver, BC. I do all sorts of audio recording, mixing, production sorts of work, as well as education on the Reaper blog at reaperblog.net.
Very cool. Then we have Lij.
Howdy, y'all. This is Lij Shaw. Speaking of small, cheap, and insignificant, my
your beard is not insignificant, my friend.
The Toy Box Studio in East Nashville, Tennessee, and my podcast is Recording Studio Rockstars. And happy holidays to you all. Thrilled to be here.
Thrilled to have you here. Mike, you're up next.
Hey, podcast land. Mike Hillier, I'm mastering engineer from London.
And a writer for Music Tech Magazine and other things.
Music Tech Magazine and Pro Sound News occasionally, and other places online probably.
And finally, Sigurdór.
Hello, good evening from Denmark. I'm Sigurdór Guðmundsson, and I'm Icelandic, so that's my excuse. I'm a mastering engineer, and I also do mixes, so there's that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for being with us on the show. And yeah, this episode is just going to be lighthearted, hopefully fun to listen to. So if you're listening to this and you want some of the hardcore nerdy stuff, I'm sure there will be some of that, but you might want to skip to another episode. But so yeah, we've all got a little something to share, a little gift in the Christmas stocking of this episode. Lij, why don't you start? I think you're going to share a song with us. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. By the way, I forgot to introduce my buddy Teletubby here. I actually don't know his name or her name, but she's here with us too.
See, I should know, but I'm afraid I don't.
Was Teletubbies a British show?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Was it? I thought it was like Japanese or something. I don't know.
No, you would think so by looking at it, but definitely British.
I like the beginning where everything kind of goes swirling up into the rainbows.
I don't know how old you were when it first came out, but I was a student, and it was kind of the thing to watch in the middle of the night when you had imbibed various substances.
That's when I like to watch it. Yeah.
So I hear.
Lij, I've just looked it up for you. Your Teletubby is called Poe.
Oh, this is Poe? Look, and there's an O, and it's kind of a P.
Yeah.
An O, like that. So that makes sense. Hi, Poe.
And the Christmas relevance is...
Poe is not my Christmas present, though. That's not my stocking stuffer. My stocking stuffer, I'm not sure. Can I share this over the podcast somewhere, or can it get put in the link below or something like that?
Oh, we'll definitely put all the links to all the stuff we're going to talk about on the show notes at themasteringshow.com.
I'm going to send it over in the message to you guys right now, and it is a song that I found on something that I'm really interested in right now. I'm following this news site called musiccoin.org, and it's pretty cool. It has to do with this world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. And it's a new music streaming site where the reason I think it's important to all of you is that, if we're all making music, it's kind of nice to know that there are new things coming along that pay something like 2,000 times more than what Spotify pays for a streaming listen of one of your songs. So anyway, I went over and I looked for a Christmas song, and there's a hilarious one here by this guy, Tom Balistreri, and it's called "Putting on the Pounds for Christmas." But what really makes it good is that he spelled his title wrong when he posted it. It says "Putting on the Ponds for Christmas." So I am sending you that link. I guess I don't know that I can play it over this.
I don't think you can. You can share
I'll put
YouTube
it in the link
links
below, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And then I thought I would also wish you a Merry Christmas this way.
Ah.
It's a little jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Merry Christmas, y'all. That's my stocking stuffer for you, and I'm sticking to it.
That's fantastic. And for any of the Brits watching, it's kind of hilarious that it's a stocking stuffer somehow. But we'll just leave that to one side.
Okay, all right. I get it.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Lij. I didn't realize you were going to play us a song. And getting back on topic slightly, if anybody ever wonders why I always moan about streaming audio quality, the sound on that clip was a perfect example.
That could have actually just been me, quite honestly.
No. There was definitely, it was definitely.
I really enjoyed the underwater section of that song.
Good deal.
Fantastic. Okay, so John, you're up next. You're going to talk about the VCV Rack.
Yeah, and I'll have to bring out my laptop for this, seeing as can't do screen sharing at the same time as a Hangout. So VCV Rack.
You can actually.
Well, I can't.
Okay.
So VCV Rack is a free open source modular synth. And it comes with, I don't know, a dozen modules. There are third-party modules available for free and for purchase. And it's a fantastic learning tool and a great free way to get into the world of modular synths. It's super addictive. So much fun. A massive CPU hog. So I got a video coming up on the Reaper blog where I'm playing around with it, doing kind of a quick intro, and my my MacBook sounds like a jet engine all the way through it, totally ruining my voiceover, which is great. But yeah, check that out at vcvrack.com.
Very cool. Is that standalone app or is that a plugin?
For now, it's a standalone app, and it runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux. But they're doing a bridge, which I guess is sort of like a rewire type thing. So it'll integrate with any DAW. And then a plugin version is coming. And it's still in beta. It's version 0.5.1 came out today. And they added the package manager, so it's a lot easier to manage your third-party plugins for it. So really cool thing.
So brief tangent. I did physics and music at university. And the two courses didn't interact at all, but they did teach us acoustics on the side as part of the physics course, because the guy who ran my course was a musician and an acoustics nut. He had a Synthy 1000, which is the really big daddy of the VCS3, which was the kind of the modular synth that Pink Floyd used on Dark Side of the Moon and stuff. So this thing was literally about 10 feet wide and 6 feet tall, and was just kind of, just any kind of analog synth fetishist's wet dream. I mean, it was amazing. But the thing I always have with modular synths is this is amazing thing sitting there, and you go, okay, I'll plug this in here and I'll plug this in here, and it kind of goes boo. And then it takes you about half an hour to make it do anything sexy. So do they have like a ton of presets that enable you to get up and running really quickly, or are they going to do that? Or I
think because it's so new, they have a quick start tutorial, and that's about it, where they tell you like how to make the connections, and they're like, put an oscillator into a filter and then put it into a VCA and then connect it to the output, and now have fun. But you can definitely spend half an hour and not get any sound out of it. But once you kind of like make the connection and get sound out for the first time, you're hooked. So then the first time you connect, I don't know, like connect something to the CV inputs in like the wrong way or something, and it makes a really unexpected sound, then you're even deeper, more committed to this thing, and it's a lot of fun. The amazing thing about it is you can save presets, which you can't do with a modular synth. So you can instantly recall any of the patches. I was actually going to play one, and I totally forgot.
Do that.
So does it show the wires and all that kind of cool stuff?
Yeah, it shows the wires.
You should definitely share the patch with the show notes or something.
Cool.
So that's just a simple one.
It even sounds cool when you're like moving it around the microphone.
Yeah.
Added filter modulation effect.
So that's all, that's all built with, I think 3 oscillators, 1 sequencer, and all the included built-in core modules. Yeah.
I think modular synthesis is so valuable for what we do as studio people, because it really teaches you what's happening, and it helps you understand sound, and everything from understanding a sound source to a filter to an envelope filter to noise generation to FM synthesis. It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's a great way to really learn the studio, I think.
So I'm now going to show something to the camera that you guys on the podcast won't be able to hear. This is my Korg. It fits in the palm of my hand. Let me see if I can make it make some noise.
The Monotron delay.
I have one of those too.
Hang on.
I feel like I should go get a synth now.
It's not. Oh, maybe it's run out of batteries. Oh, that's disappointing.
I also have one. You have one of these, Ian?
I've got that one.
I don't have one of those. Hey, we've all got them. These are really cute. They're real Korg synths. There we go. That's the kind of noise I was trying to get.
Yeah, those are great. They're like $30, I think.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, they have real filters is the main thing, but it's a digital oscillator, something like that. Yeah, and they have external inputs as well.
And I haven't tried this, but apparently if you plug them into if you plug the headphone jack in and put them through a proper speaker, they actually sound really quite seriously fruity. So those would make genuinely good stocking fillers. Any of you, anybody who's listening to this and is kind of was expecting stocking stuffers, Lij. So if you want something for the audio nerd in your life, then one of these could be just the ticket.
On the synth note here, this is a stylophone. This is what was used on Space Oddity.
Wow, that's a big one.
Yeah, this is a real deal.
Okay, so we're going to have to do some screen captures from the video and put them in the show notes for anybody who's listening to this and wants to know what this synth that Lij is holding looks like. It's amazing.
It looks like a typewriter size thing. If you know
Ready,
what
John?
is.
I'm talking right now. I'm taking over the mic. Screen capture me. I'm taking over the mic. Screen capture me.
What's it called, Lij?
This is
the Stylophone.
Stylophone 350. 350S.
Okay.
And in that case, I'm going to have to go on a little tangent. Wow, this stocking really does have a ton of stuff in it. One of my favorite bands is I guess they're kind of a dance band, but it's more electronica, Orbital. And they did a tune called Style, which samples a stylophone, which is amazing. So I will share that in the show notes for anybody listening. It's highly recommended to anybody who likes bleepy noises and calls it music.
And if you like stylophone music, check out Brett Domino, because it does a lot of sort of parody songs with little Casios and stylophones and things like that.
John, your mic just sounds so freaking good, dude. You just sound like
really?
Sound like God in my head.
I think it's his voice.
It's both.
Okay.
You're right.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic.
No, it really does. It does. No, as producers, you're absolutely right, Sigurdór. Of course, it's his voice, not the microphone.
The source,
It's a CAD M179.
With a really nice looking spoffle. John, can you just can you demonstrate the fidget spinner thing for people listening?
Yeah. Now that we're recording. Fidget spinner on a fluffy windscreen.
On a spoffle.
Amazing.
Everybody should try it.
Excellent. Right, moving on. Mike, you're going to talk to us about the mic that you're using now, right?
Yeah, on the topic of sounding good. Hopefully this sounds good. I've no idea. But before that, I thought I'd play a little song for you. Because I've got this wonderful little tie, which everyone listening can't see. But it's a Christmas tie.
Let me just tell everybody that it looks as good as it sounds. Yeah, lift it up and we'll screen cap it.
Higher up. Okay. It won't stop for ages now.
Well, now I can see the eyes flashing, and you're right, it is slightly demonic.
It's really demonic. And I got this as a 16th birthday present from my auntie, and it still works. 20 years later.
And
that in
you have
itself
never
is
strangled
scary.
yourself while...
Never strangled myself once and never replaced the battery.
Have you ever worn it professionally?
I've worn it many times. I wear it every single Christmas without fail.
Okay, this is the point where I should... so here's my Christmas T-shirt, in case anybody hasn't been able to pick it up yet.
It's an excellent Christmas
I just wanted
shirt.
everybody to...
Is
That's
that
a matching
Rudolph?
T-shirt I have with... Well, it's a reindeer, yes, with a very large nose, so I assume it is Rudolph. Yeah. Mike, now tell us about the mic you're using.
So the microphone I'm using is the Townsend Labs Sphere L22, which is a large diaphragm condenser. But what makes it interesting is it's got stereo outputs. So it records from both the front and rear capsule simultaneously. And then you put that into your computer and there's a little application, a plugin that comes with it. And you can then model any microphone that you like. So I'm currently modeling a U47. And if I press a few buttons, it will model a C12. And if I press a few more buttons, it'll now be modeling a U67. None of you get to hear this because you're just hearing my built-in mic, but for the listeners at home, this now sounds like a ribbon microphone.
That's amazing. We're all going to have to come back and listen to the podcast episode in order to appreciate that in all its glory. So wait, is when you say it's stereo, that's one, so it's mono at the front, mono at the back, or are you saying it's two stereo capsules?
No, there are two mono capsules. So it's a front capsule and a rear capsule, and then obviously two outputs.
And when it's modeling, is it doing that in software? Or
Modeling is in software, yes. And as well as changing the mic model, you can also change the amount of proximity effect. You can change the pickup pattern. So you could have a cardioid pickup pattern or an omni pickup pattern or a figure of 8 pickup pattern. And because you've already recorded the stereo recording off the microphone, you can change all of this after the fact. So you can put more proximity, less proximity. You can change the angle. So if you accidentally recorded from the side, you could correct that and have it record from the front or sound like it was recorded from the front.
Very interesting. What's this brand again?
It's Townsend Labs.
and how does it sound? I mean, are you impressed with the actual? I mean, it sounds great in theory. Is it working well?
It does. I mean, it's. I don't have all of those microphones to compare directly to. I've compared it with 4 of the models. So I've got a 57. I was fortunate enough to be at an event where someone compared it with the C800, and it has a C800 model built in. And then I've compared it with an 87 in the studio as well, and the 4038, the Coles. The 87 model sounds remarkably like an 87, so obviously that's the easy one to do. The 57's pretty close. The ribbon microphone one, I'm not convinced about. And the Sony C800, I don't think it was anywhere close.
That's still going to give you some interesting options. How much does it cost? Because there's a similar, there's the Soundfield microphone, isn't there? Which is a kind of similar idea, but had capsules in a tetrahedron. And in theory allows you to kind of do almost any 3D manipulation you like of it after the fact, because you record it in 4 tracks.
Yeah, those are cool. Well, this is more similar to the Slate microphone, right?
Slate one does very similar things, yes.
Have you used that, by the way?
No, I haven't. So I'm not going to compare them because I've not tried it. I'm trying to look up the price for you now of this microphone.
I tried to listen to the Slate microphone at a, it was an event here, like a Vintage King event or something like that. And they had it set up at a booth with a pair of headphones. But when I popped it on, there was so much latency on the app that they were using, the DAW, that I was like, you couldn't really tell anything. It's dreaded latency.
This, firstly, you can use it just as a mic. And so when you're recording with it, you don't have to use the app at all. And you can just listen to the direct signal. But there's a UAD version of the app. So if you've got an Apollo, you can monitor through your Apollo with the UAD DSP handling the latency. And it's €1,500. I just looked it up.
Fantastic. Now, I've just noticed that Matt Boudrau has joined us on the podcast. Matt, how the devil are you?
I'm great now that I got Hangouts to work. I couldn't get it to work earlier.
Yeah, we saw you kind of appear and then disappear, but great, you're here now. So I got everybody else to do a quick, two-line introduction. Maybe you could do the same thing?
Sure. I'm Matt Boudreau. I am the host of Working Class Audio, a podcast. I'm also a engineer and a dad and, all that. And I'm here now.
Very cool. Thanks for joining us. So next up, the next item out of the virtual Christmas stocking that is this podcast episode, Chris is going to talk to us about Regroover.
Yeah, Regroover. This is from the company Accusonus. They're from Greece. Me and Lij, we actually met them at AES in New York City back in October. So they have this, it's not a plugin, but it's an instrument. So you add this as an instrument into your DAW, and it's called Regroover. So what it does, basically it takes a drum loop, a groove, and it layers everything in separate layers. So,
so it separates the elements of the groove?
Exactly, the element of the within the loop itself. So it separates like on separate tracks, okay? But they called it layers. And from that point on, you can play with the individual layers by themselves, and regroove everything. So that's why they call it Regroover. So it is quite powerful. They have like that crazy algorithm going on that detects all separate sounds. And when you solo them, it's pretty impressive. It's like if they were recorded separately, So it's pretty cool.
Does sound cool. I mean, is that because what was it called? The thing that used to slice beats up and then you chop them into samples and you could and you could time stretch them. What was that thing called?
Rex, make a Rex file.
Recycle,
yeah.
There you go. Yeah, so but it's more than that, right? Because if you had if you had a bass line over underneath the beat or whatever, it would separate that out. And
now I'm not sure about the music. I think it's aiming only drum grooves.
Okay.
Mainly. Okay. So it works well with electronic drum beats, but when it comes to I tried it with some acoustic drums, like loops from Loop Masters. I think they have like acoustic drum loops. So if you try them with an acoustic drum loop, it's a bit harder. The system works harder than when you try it with a regular electronic loop. So, but the fun thing about that is just the fact that you can be super creative with that kind of tool. So you take that drum loop, you can isolate. If you want to keep only the kick drum, for example, you can. So it's very easy to do so and regroove the entire thing.
And that's even presumably if the kick is playing on the same beat as the snare, for example.
Oh, that's a good, you know what? I think so. I think it does separate.
It must be, otherwise, if you didn't solo it. Now that's really cool because it sounds like that's kind of musical, creative version of, they were doing this kind of thing with the Beatles. The one I heard about recently was there's the really famous concert from the Hollywood Bowl where they did actually release it as an album, but it's basically unlistenable because the crowd was screaming so loud that it's just painful.
But still.
And I mean, so with the Beatles stuff, they're kind of taking multitracks and separating out the instruments so that they can remix stuff before it was recorded on multitrack. But also with this Hollywood Bowl concert, they used I forget the name. They used a piece of music software to kind of model the music so that they could effectively subtract it from the crowd and then blend the crowd back in at a lower level. I mean, it's amazing the stuff that and I mean, you think about the way technology is going. We'll probably be able to do that on our laptops in 5 or 10 years' time, maybe probably 5 rather than 10. So I mean, yeah, it's amazing what
It is crazy.
this makes me think of. This was something that I was going to share as my cool thing, but I found something even cooler, I think. But there's a video that I shared on Facebook recently that is, so here in the UK we used to have a show called Tomorrow's World back in when I was growing up in the 80s, which is an extremely straight-laced British program where they would tell you things about what they thought the future would be like. And they all suits and ties. I mean, looking back, it's hilarious. Anyway, it's got this guy, Mike Rodd, demonstrating a 4-track cassette Porter Studio, one of the first Porter Studios that comes out. And it's, in this day and age where you can record a band on a phone, it's kind of amazing and hilarious to see how far we've come. And that's another example of the same thing.
Definitely. Yeah, so that was my discovery of the year.
I wanted to make a comment about that regroover. So I think that a first inclination for us as engineers is to ask tough questions about like the snare and the kick being separated, like it's sort of like a what's the word, like when you're a detective and you're trying to like extract all this information. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a little bit more like there's so many people making music that just start with these pre-made loops, and it gives you a tool to just throw it in there and instantly turn that one loop into a whole bunch of different things where you have the same sound. So it's just a cool creative tool,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm still gonna work with it and try to figure it out. I just started to play with it a bit, and I'm gonna do my goal is to do a review on it on YouTube. So I'm gonna go in depth into that regroover thing.
Excellent, and we will share the link to Chris's site on the show notes at themastering.show.com for anybody who wants to subscribe to his channel and check that out in future. And of course, we'll put everybody else's details there. All of our guests, will be information there so you can connect with them and find out what they do, because they're all incredibly cool people, which is why I invited them on the podcast.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, okay, so Sigurdór, your next...
Yeah, I did some thinking. That didn't work, so I started reflecting. And after realizing, I started to cry. And then I realized the best plugin I bought this year. So, we spend money on plugins, don't we?
We do.
Yeah, equipment, etc. Some of that we use for a while, and some of that gets right into the game, right? So I thought of I'm pretty sure you all know about this, but this is basically like just in case if there's somebody out there that hasn't, and it's Soothe from Oek-sound. So that's kind of the plugin, the new plugin, a new design, a new thing.
So I know about it, but I haven't used it. So could you kind of just give us a quick description of what it does and what it is you like about it?
Well, can I read from the page? Well, they say it's a dynamic resonance suppressor for mid and high frequencies. And that's what it is. Yeah. But you can actually make it pretty much a full band thing, with, the filters. So.
Okay, so it's like a dynamic EQ. So it's like when you, have a singer who's moving in and out on the mic, and there's certain frequencies that are ringing out, and you EQ it out when like that frequency is too loud, but then it makes it sound too thin when they're not singing in that way or at that distance that the problem is there. So it's kind of automatically smoothing all that stuff out. Is that the right kind of idea?
Yeah, it's kind of like a dynamic EQ, but it's not fixed in a frequency. It's kind of floating around, but you can narrow it to you can tune it quite a bit, but
okay, yeah. So it's, let's say somebody has two resonant frequencies in their voice, like one at 500 and one at 1K. Mm-hmm. It will take those out, but only when necessary. Yeah, so you're going to get an overall more natural sound without having two frequencies going at both of those things all the time.
Yeah, with some, with the correct settings, you could do that. Yeah.
This is like the go-to mixing plugin for working on tube and throat singing, then I guess, right?
Yeah, Frank Zappa would have loved this.
Very cool. And so one of my pet hates is mixes that are just, from a mastering perspective, mixes that are just really harsh, but maybe only one instrument, or like when certain things are happening in the song. So have you tried it out on a mix? Is it any good for because there's another plugin, I forget the name of it, that was specifically designed to kind of make harsh mixes sound less aggressive. Could you use this in that way?
That one's called Mute.
I was going to say De-Edger by, I think it's Old Horse Digital, which is associated with Tokyo Dawn.
That's the one that I was thinking of. I've tried that and kind of, and thought it was okay. It didn't quite do what I wanted to do with at the time that I tried it. I maybe need to dive back into it and see whether I can get a better result with it. I mean, can you use Soothe for that kind of thing, Sigurdór, or is it better on single items within a mix?
I have, well, it's in my mastering chain where I can drop it in and out and, see if, so, yeah.
Okay, so it could be useful for that kind of stuff. That's interesting. I might have to look into that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
It's cool. I'm looking at the Soothe website. I see that Chris Shaw is one of the guys, and I just heard him speaking at a conference here in Nashville, and he's awesome.
But I told you about it, so...
Yeah, right. So, and you're more awesome.
I'm okay.
Yeah. So is Poe.
Yeah.
The Teletubby.
Awesome.
I don't know what this one is called, but, But anyway.
Isn't that the one in Star Wars? Oh, no, sorry, spoilers.
Yeah, this one.
I told you it was cute.
Yeah, you were right.
Can't believe that's the villain.
And they're so mean. It's just so dark. It's like, this is another one that's not going to work on radio. Matt, you joined us late and you hadn't had a chance to read the email, but you said you'd thought of something. What did you think of?
Yeah, I thought of a couple things. One of them, not a discovery this year, actually. It's kind of an older discovery for me. Sonarworks software. These guys make a room correction software that has a great GUI to set it up. You basically are taking measurements of blips and blops that come out of your speakers, and it takes a measurement of your room, creates an EQ plot that addresses the deficiencies in your room, and then that appears as a plugin with your preset of your room ready to go in your mix. Place it on your mix bus, you mix to it, and you mix through it, rather. And when you're done, you pull it off the mix bus and print your mix, and your mix will hopefully translate much better. And in my experience, the difference was night and day. So fantastic tool. I think it's a few $100. Not super cheap, not super expensive. And
I heard it just came up with the new version 4, that just been released.
And the version 4 is great because it very easily integrates into the OS so that you can listen to everything through it without it being necessarily in the DAW per se. So if you have a Google Music subscription or a Tidal, whatever, Spotify, it'll go through there.
Yeah, I have the version with for the headphones. That's the one I have. Yeah, it does a very nice job.
Yeah, I've played with that version as well. I actually usually choose not to use it. What I'll do is kind of, if there's, especially if I'm working here and I'm thinking, oh, is that bass thing that I'm thinking is happening definitely happening? I will quite often just put the HD 650s on and use the Sonarworks with that correction just to know that I'm hearing something really flat in terms of the frequency response. I don't think I would work with it permanently to make decisions on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to hear that it works, because I think, John, you mentioned in one of the previous episodes that you'd experimented with something similar by a different company, and you kind of found that the most useful thing it gave you was information about your room that you were then able to fix, right?
IK Multimedia ARC 2. Yeah, I found that when I would do the testing and the resulting curve, what it would apply, the EQ curve that it would apply to the speakers, it was +8 in the high frequencies, like a high shelf at +8. So then I realized that the broadband absorption on my sidewalls was way too extreme. So replaced that with some diffusion, and it was, the next time I tested, it was more flat.
So. Interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, there's lots of different ways of using this stuff. People often ask me about it, and so I always reply, do the acoustic treatment thing first before you do this, because quite aside from anything else, you're just giving the software less to do, which is always going to be better. Who was it who'd used version 4 of the Sonarworks?
Yes, I have, and Chris has as well.
How is the latency on that?
You can dial in the amount of latency based on the amount of processing. In fact, I think the more there's like a little slider that allows you to dial in the percentage, and that the higher percentage causes more latency. But I mean, the latency is not bad at all. I mean, it's I would say it's minimal.
That's good. Yeah, because I wasn't sure. I think with the headphone one, there's a minimum phase through to a phase linear thing, and the latency gets worse. But I guess, I mean, for mixing and mastering, that's less. I mean, we're kind of used to latency in that situation anyway, and you could always turn it off for tracking.
Matt, have you ever accidentally delivered your mix printed through the EQ plugin?
I don't know what you're talking about. I have delivered mixes by accident that were printed through there without realizing it until the client said, "Yeah, I love it. It sounds great." And then I went back to export all the, do all the housekeeping afterwards and realized, oh my God, I left it on.
And they were like, "It sounds awesome.
It sounds awesome."
Now, that's the good thing we have with Cubase. We have the control room, so we can pop in any plugins we want, and it's not going to be bounced with our mixes. It's only for monitoring, so which is good.
Oh, now you're just bragging, Chris.
I know.
I bet Reaper can do that, right, John?
Yep, monitoring effects chain.
There you go.
You guys are crazy.
Reaper can do anything.
I do have one other thing, Ian.
Yeah.
If we have time. The other thing that has been really helpful for me on my podcast in particular is the McDSP SA2 dialogue processor. And it's 5 independent bands of active equalization. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's very reminiscent of a lot of pre-existing multi-band compressors or active EQ type things. But this particular plugin was modeled after a box from some film mixer. And I think he came to Colin at McDSP and said, can you model this box? And they did it kind of, as an experiment, and it turned out really great. And then long story short, they won an Emmy for it.
Wow.
Which is great, but it's great for just keeping a handle on dialogue or voiceovers or podcast guests or whatever. It's great on the voice.
So that's cool. Is that like EQ compression kind of all in one kind of is like channel strip kind of thing?
No, it's just 5 bands of processing that don't look like anything else. There's basically 5 knobs, and you get to adjust the mode and the band mode, and that's it. It's pretty simple.
And what's it called again?
It's called the SA2 dialogue processor.
From whom?
From McDSP.
Oh yeah,
that's very interesting. I'm going to be checking that out. That kind of stuff where you just plug it in and it just works. Those are kind of almost the most valuable things. Sometimes, it's great to have tools where you can do anything. You can tweak all these parameters to your heart's content. But if you can just kind of know that it's going to work, it's the kind of the Apple approach to sound engineering, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard good things about that from film mixers.
Well, it's great on a lot of things that have to do with the voice.
There's 2 kinds of plugins. There's the kinds that let you do all kinds of great work in the studio, and then there's the kinds that let you be done working in the studio.
Matt, is the SA2 the reason your voice always sounds so damn smooth?
I don't know. Does my voice sound so damn smooth?
I think it's the same as John. It's just get it right at the source again.
I think that's a combination of just, the mic, which is this mic, the BP40 from Audio-Technica, as well as just the chain. It's a UA Apollo and Neve 1073 and LE2A combined with some, SA2 on the back end.
That's a nice chain. If only we all had that vocal chain. Excellent. Okay, so now we're going to go to Ian Stewart, who has a song and a tip.
Yeah. I did have one tip, but I actually just thought of another sort of shorter and more concrete one maybe in the last few minutes. So it was actually about a year ago, Ian, that I did the podcast episode with you where we talked about stereo processing and stereo width. And since then, I have written a blog post that's all about mid-side and some of the perils therein. And I've been on a kind of very passive crusade to try and bring some more awareness of this to people. I think there's a lot of misinformation about mid-side and how mid-side processing works, especially once you get into mid-side EQ and some of the weird things that can happen there. So that's on my website. And if mid-side processing, mid-side EQ especially, is something that you use, I really think it's worth checking out. And there are just a few concrete examples there of weird things that can happen. Then the song I wanted to share was actually by an artist that my dad got me into this year by the name of Jacob Collier. I believe he is English. He has a sensibility about harmony and arrangement and music theory that I find really interesting and really beautiful to listen to. And he did an arrangement of a Christmas carol that you don't hear that much, at least in the States, called In the Bleak Midwinter. But the arrangement is anything but bleak. It's incredibly lush and beautiful. So I'll share a link. He did a YouTube video of it. And it's basically a cappella, and it's him singing all the parts, and really neat arrangement of it though. So
that's actually one of my favorite carols. I think you're right. It's less well known, and that reminds me that I was going to recommend some music. So I'll do it in two stages. So I'll recommend my version of that carol and a bunch of others. There is an album called Carols from Clare College in Cambridge. So just nearby here. A load of the Cambridge colleges have this amazing tradition of music. They have these amazing historical, architectural locations that King's College Chapel, which some people may have seen, they broadcast the carols there on Christmas Day here in the UK. The roof of the chapel is by Sir Christopher Wren, I believe, who designed St Paul's Cathedral, and it's just an amazing space to experience music. It really is an experience as well, just kind of sonically and in terms of being there, especially if they do a candlelit service, which is fantastic. So anybody in this area who hasn't done that, you have to queue up for several hours to get in, but it's well worth the wait. Anyway, so there's this beautiful, one of my favorite Christmas albums is called Carols from Clare, with arrangements by John Rutter. And that has a beautiful version of In the Bleak Midwinter on it as well. And then I have another musical recommendation, which I will save for my own tip, which, you've given us your song and your tip, haven't you, Ian?
Yeah, kind of. There was one other tip I had thought of that's very simple, and I've stated it before, but I can restate it if
Go
you
for
want.
It. Yeah, sure.
I think the main thing that I've really tried to focus in on my own work this year in mastering is to come up with a game plan. I think it's very easy, especially when you're starting out, to listen to something and you've gotten all these tools at your disposal. You've bought a bunch of new plugins and you just want to throw them on and try them out. And it's really easy to make things sound different. And sometimes maybe different is better, and sometimes maybe different is just different. So I've really tried to be cognizant about sitting, listening, coming up with a game plan. What do I want to fix about this? What do I think needs changing? And maybe even write that down so you have a concrete reference of, you can go back to this and this is what I was thinking the first time I listened through this. And then pick your tool to try and address that. Take a stab at it. Listen. Did you achieve your goals? Yes. Great. Move on. No. Try again. But I think too often we just throw the kitchen sink at things because we can and we have the tools without really thinking about whether it's really necessary first.
The first thing that came along was the ability to do lots of tracks. So you could throw musical ideas and just keep layering more and more junk on. And then you learn that editing and deleting that stuff is where the real power is. after you tried those ideas. And then came along the ability to just layer more and more plugins on and more processing. And I'm finding myself doing the same thing, where it's that editing power of try all the ideas and then turn them all off, and all of a sudden it sounds so much better, you know? So just because you can put it on doesn't mean you can't take it off again afterwards.
Exactly.
Unless you print it while you track.
And send it off for pressing.
Absolutely.
That's what perception's for, though, isn't it, Ian?
Oh, perception is for everything. Very cool. Thank you. Well, Matt has just messaged me to say he's going to head off soon. So, Matt, thank you for being on the podcast. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you for your little gifts that you added to this Christmas stocking. Everybody should go and listen to Matt's podcast. How many episodes are you on now, Matt?
Christmas Day, I will release my 158th episode.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you
That's
go.
awesome.
Matt, you're like a big brother. As long as we both release an episode a week, you'll always be older than me.
Fantastic. Well,
workingclassaudio.com.
absolutely. Yep. All the links in the show notes, folks. And Matt, have a great Christmas if we don't speak to you beforehand.
Yeah, happy holidays to all of you, and on this call, and happy holidays to your listeners, Ian. So everybody take care.
Merry Christmas, Matt.
Same to you,
Cheers.
Matt.
See you. So that makes me the kind of the tangerine that you pull out of the bottom of the stocking right at the end. Does everybody always have a satsuma?
Call.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, you've kind of had the walnuts and the chocolate coins and all the rest of it, and I'm the annoying fruit at the end that you always get. What am I going to talk about? Okay, so the first thing is something that I only found out about today. It's a new idea by Elko Grimm, who was my guest on the podcast a few shows ago, but it's very different to... then he was talking about loudness normalization. This is nothing to do with loudness, and I'm not going to talk about loudness. And it's a way of contributing money directly to independent artists whose work you appreciate, that you support. You know, all of us now are using streaming services more and more, and every time we stream a bit of music, a tiny, tiny amount of money goes into the pot that Spotify and Apple Music and all of these different companies collect, and then that gets apportioned up amongst the record labels. And there is a large kind of umbrella organization called Merlin, I believe, that represents independent record companies as part of those negotiations. But for me, the disappointing thing is that even if I listen to my favorite independent artist all day, every day for a week, more money will go into the pot, but it doesn't necessarily mean that more of that money will actually find its way to that independent artist. Because as I understand it, the way that the money is split up goes by record companies rather than on an artist level. And I would love to know that the artists that I'm listening to are actually getting my support. Like when I buy an album, I know that that money will go, or some of that money will go to the artists. So this is an idea that kind of is a step in that direction. Elko is proposing this this idea called the Karma button. And basically it's a button that would appear, at the moment he's talking to Spotify about it. He tweeted, is it Daniel Ek? Is that the guy who runs Spotify? I think, and suggested this idea to him. He said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Put it in our forums as a suggestion and see how many votes you get. So Elko has done that. I did this, incidentally, with my request to reduce the loudness level that, oh, damn, I said I wasn't going to talk about loudness. I did this with a suggestion to reduce the loudness level that Spotify played back at. I have no idea whether I know they noticed that because they promoted it from kind of an idea to a good suggestion, and it did indeed happen. Whether that post in the forums had any kind of influence on that, I don't know. But Spotify, you know, they have this mechanism for getting suggestions from their users, and they seem to act on them. So Elko has put this suggestion there. Basically, it's a button you click, and a kind of micro donation is made to the artist that you want to support. There's some political stuff involved with that and the record labels, which Elko is aware of, and that's all handled as part of this idea. He's also found an organization in Holland who are prepared to actually handle this. It's the Dutch rights organization who handle ISRC codes and all of the licensing stuff there, they have agreed to provide a mechanism that could make this work. So it seems like it's a solution they're kind of waiting to happen, and all we need is enough votes to get Spotify to take it seriously. So I will share on the show notes page for this show the link. I would love it if anybody here who likes this idea, click through to that link. There's quite a long post there from Ailco that explains what the idea is, how it works, and you can vote to support it. Seems to me like a great idea that anybody would want to support. Don't know what everybody else on the call thinks about that.
No, I think it's great. I love the idea of trying to empower artists to actually make a living through sharing their music, because I think I was just speaking to some people today and getting a stat on, and I don't remember whether I mentioned this earlier, but a stat on what a Spotify amount is that goes to an artist. And I think it's like 0.006 cents or something like that. And that's why I was also sharing, talking about this music coin, which is another concept of letting an artist receive direct income. Right now, I think you get 2 to 3 cents per listen straight to the artist, and there's no intermediary. But I think that's great. And an idea like MusiCoin has a long ways to go before there's mass adoption. It's still tiny and startup. But Spotify, anything that can help artists start really receiving some, financial love through the platforms that exist right now is a great way to start.
Yep, absolutely. That was my thinking too. Cool. So now I will share the other music recommendation I have. This is slightly more esoteric. I'm a huge fan of Benjamin Britton. I grew up in Suffolk, where Britton lived and wrote most of his music. The orchestra that I played in when I was a teenager, we would do our concerts in the concert hall that he set up, Snake Maltings, in Aldborough on the East Coast. It's a beautiful part of the world. It's an amazing concert hall. The acoustics there are extraordinary. You can literally hear a pin drop on the back row with no amplification. And being there is like being enveloped in the music. It's incredible. And Britton wrote a thing called Ceremony of Carols for harp and boys choir. It's modern music, but I think it's modern music that anybody could enjoy. I would love to see a performance of this in King's College Chapel, because it begins with the choir in a procession. So they start outside the building and they come in singing this kind of plain song melody. And then it's quite short. It's maybe 20, 25 minutes long. I have a recording of it that was made by, I think it was Westminster Cathedral Choir. I don't know whether that's available on the streaming services, but I mean, there are multiple versions of this out there. I would highly recommend anybody who wants something a little bit different from their Christmas music to maybe experiment with that and see what you think of it. I had, last time I counted, I had 56 different recordings of music by Britton. Thank you so much to all of you guys for being a guest on this podcast. I had another idea where we could share what we were excited about in the year to come, but we've got a very healthy running time at this point, so I think we'd better wrap it up. Maybe all of us can just say Merry Christmas to everybody, and then we'll sign off. No, that's not going to work, because nobody's going to know what order to go and anything else.
We could do it all together.
We could do it all together. Let's all do it, and then John can have fun making some kind of sense. Hey, maybe you could pan it all out in stereo or something. Okay, so we'll do a visual count here on the YouTubes, and we'll all say, what are we going to say? Merry Christmas.
I'm going to say it in my language, okay?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. In fact, we say Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So after 3, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Oh, Sigurdór wins. That's definitely the coolest sounding. Gentlemen, thank you so much. John, thank you so much for editing this. This will be a challenge I'm sure that you will relish just before Christmas. Thanks to Kaylee Law for letting us use his music. Oh, one other thing. If you've made it this far and you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. We've set up a really easy way for you to do that. You just need to go to themasteringshow.com/review, and it will take you directly through so that you can leave us a comment. It's great. John's voice sounds way better than Ian's, whatever you like. If it's positive, I hope We would really appreciate that because it helps more people find the podcast, which is what we want. We want to help as many people as we can. So thanks again, everybody, and thanks for listening.